horticultural industry. There's been a suggestion of kiwi fruit sprouting in the Garden of England, secret plantings of New Zealand kiwi fruit there. Turners and growers are involved in this.
Well, turners and growers would have to be. Well, I guess it's a two-pronged attack. They can't export from New Zealand beyond Australia at the moment, so why not export from plantings overseas? And they've made no secret of some plantings in China and I think in South America and the development of their own varieties.
So this is just another string to their bow.
I think it's a good idea from their perspective, getting one up over Zespri, but Zespri's doing the same thing anyway.
Yeah. So they're playing each other at the same game, really. Yeah,
yeah, but clearly Zespri's the big player here. It dominates the market, and turners and growers are just trying to pick up some of the scraps with some of their own value-added ideas.
Well, we'll see what happens there.
Perhaps Tony Gibbs will get out there with a shovel and start digging. Now he's got a bit more time on his hands.
Who knows? Yeah, thanks, team. Up next, we take to task or give praise to the movers and shakers in the ag sector. You won't want to miss this. Well, it's our favourite part of the show. It's on to You Beauty, praise or abolishing, the opposite. What do you have, Liam?
Well, out of Otago University, Professor John Knight did a study, just a small study in the UK about buying patterns with produce and determined that country of origin and food miles, carbon, all that stuff isn't really relevant in terms of what the consumer is looking for. So
this is good news for New Zealand producers?
I think it is, because so many people are banging on about the need to sort of try and mitigate that as an issue in the minds of consumers, when clearly it's not an issue. I think more study needs to be done to prove that. But also it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for any ETS prospects that we're getting underway here in New Zealand.
Right. Bernard, do you think there's a danger here of sort of taking our eye off the ball by saying that, you know, these issues don't matter so much?
I think food miles was a flawed idea to start with, and it's clear that UK consumers also believe that. But we do have to be careful about how we produce our product to make sure it's clean, and also to make sure that we keep our costs down. One of the things people don't realise about carbon emissions is that they're expensive. If you reduce your carbon emissions, you're probably reducing your fuel use and reducing your fertiliser use. So it's a good thing. A lot of businesses tend to write off the whole emissions trading scheme greenhouse issue as just another bunch of greenies doing their thing.
It'd be better to get with it and
but actually just use it as an opportunity to cut your costs.
Right. What about the debate at the moment, Liam, about the possibility of fruit and vegetables having the GST removed on them, as is the case in Australia? Do you think there's going to be any successful outcome there?
Well, it's logistically clearly from a government perspective and even a retailer perspective, but from a consumer point of view, I think it'll be extremely valuable. It's certainly going to boost sales of fresh produce here.
So it could be something that might happen, do you think, Bernard, or not a chance?
If it does, it's stupid. It's the nuttiest idea out. One of the good things we've got about our tax system, pretty much the only good thing, is a good, clean GST. And introducing this would be stupid. If we're going to do it, let's impose extra taxes on non-fresh food and vegetables. And it'll come, a fat tax, sugar tax, salt tax, you know, these are things that should be considered, as governments will need over time to raise more revenue from other sources to pay for the pensions and healthcare that will have to be paid for over the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, I believe you've got a beauty or a bollocking for us this week.
A good bollocking for the dairy farmers in Canterbury, who yet again have failed the test, according to ECAN, in terms of effluent compliance. 9% of them are not compliant with their effluent rules. The explosion in dairy in Canterbury has really stressed the system down there, and farmers have to be very careful here that this doesn't become a public issue in New Zealand, if it isn't already one, and that they lose the political support of not just the town, but the political elite in New Zealand who are starting to wonder about this. You know, the explosion in dairying has put all sorts of stresses on our system, financial and environmental. We have to be careful here.
But there were some shows of improvements in terms of less cases of significant non-compliance, weren't there, in those statistics?
Yes, it's less bad than it was. It's still bad.
It's still bad, right. So the answer is a more concerted approach from Fonterra, other dairy companies. Has Federated Farmers got a role to play here?
Yes, the entire dairy industry needs to look hard at itself and say, are we really doing enough on this? How serious do we really think it is? Or do we still want to jump around calling these environmental councils a bunch of communists? Because that's when you scratch the surface, that's what a lot of farmers really think. They need to actually get their acts together and work out they're part of a wider community and a wider world, not just their own ones.
But Liam, some farmers would argue that some of the regulations they have to comply with under their resource consents, they're fairly twiddly and perhaps don't have an awful lot to do with the successful running of their businesses.
They would argue that, but the thing is, with the environmental imposts, I guess, I mean, they're valid. There's such a wider, a much bigger picture that needs to be considered rather than just the success of their own businesses. And that needs to be taken into account with it all. But, I mean, perhaps the regional councils need to be more focused about what is important.
Right.
All it will take is one documentary on the BBC or on CBS saying New Zealand has dirty dairying farms. That'll be it.
Well, I have a new beauty for the Young Farmer of the Year competition. It's been around for a long time, but it still showcases the best the agricultural sector has to offer. 1,300 people flooded into Gore to sit in the audience and cheer the lads on. It's great to see the up-and-coming generation going for gold. Their success guarantees our future as a farming nation. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thanks to my guests, National Business Review journalist Liam Baldwin and interest.co.nz's Bernard Hickey. And thanks to you at home for watching. Let me know what's on your mind. Email me at country99tv.co.nz and check out my blog while you're there. See you next week.